Now, a Palestinian teen has been killed by Israeli forces in the occupied West Bank. 17-year-old Muhammad Abu Hashash died after being shot in clashes with Israeli forces earlier in the day. The violence took place in Al-Fawar refugee camp near the city of Al-Khalil, also known as Hebron. Israeli forces stormed the refugee camp at dawn, ransacking homes and interrogating residents. Clashes then broke out between local youth and Israeli soldiers who fired live gunshots, tear gas and rubber-coated steel bullets at the youth, injuring at least 50, including Abu Hashash. The teenager is one of the 231 Palestinians who've been killed by Israelis since the upsurge in violence across the Palestinian territories in October. Joining us now to discuss this further is Jeremy Hammond. He's the publisher of the Foreign Policy Journal, and he joins us via Skype from Michigan. Many thanks for joining us here on Press TV, Mr. Hammond. Now, as we've just mentioned, tensions are extremely high in the occupied West Bank, be it through the storming of refugee camps and homes or mass arrests that have taken place over the weeks and months, the mass evacuations of homes and demolitions. It seems that there's a concerted effort to instigate some form of a reaction from the Palestinians.
Sure, that's probable, I would say, not unlikely. This is kind of a modus operandi for Israel to provoke a violent response in order to create a pretext to be able to sustain its policies. We've seen this with ceasefires with Hamas. In 2008, Israel had a ceasefire with Hamas. It was honored by Hamas. And what Israel did, apart from violating the ceasefire in Gaza, it also had raids into the West Bank and killed militants there. And of course, there was a violent response from the brethren in Gaza, which Israel uses as a pretext. And Hamas held that ceasefire. It was violated by Israel, including an invasion of Gaza on November 4th of 2008. So this is kind of a routine thing for Israel. It also tries to justify its demolitions of homes, on various grounds. Sometimes it says that the homes were built without permits. Why do Palestinians need permission from the Israeli government to build homes on their own land? Unfortunately, this has kind of been legitimized by the PLO by signing the Oslo Accords, and the Oslo Accords also created the Palestinian Authority, or the PA, which remains under the illegitimate leadership of Mahmoud Abbas. And the purpose of the PA is to essentially act as Israel's enforcer to enforce its occupation regime. So it's a collaboration regime, and unfortunately, this is part of the problem here, is that the Palestinian Authority won't do what it needs to do to end the occupation, which is to press for legal measures through the UN, through the International Criminal Court, the ICC, through the International Court of Justice, to essentially sue Israel for its crimes against the Palestinians, and Abbas won't do it.
All right, Mr. Hammond, let me just jump in there. When you speak of international fora like the UN, for example, let's not forget that Israel is in violation of multiple UN Security Council resolutions, but not being held to account for it. So it seems that Israel's atrocities have become the norm for the international community now, haven't they?
Yes, absolutely. Many countries can condemn Israel for its crimes, but they don't actually do anything to prevent them. There's been very marginal measures, like the EU has taken some steps to try to force Israel to label products that are produced in illegally constructed settlements in the West Bank. Some things like this. And these are good steps. They're important steps. But at the same time, the biggest problem is the U.S. My book was just published, Obstacle to Peace, the U.S. role in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, in which I document how the U.S. militarily, financially, and diplomatically supports Israel's crimes against the Palestinians. It's meaningless rhetoric to the contrary notwithstanding. For example, that the U.S. criticizes Israeli settlements by saying things like that they're not helpful, You know, sometimes it calls them an obstacle to peace. It calls them illegitimate. What it won't say is that they're illegal, even though if the official position of the U.S. government is that they are illegal and a violation of international law, but the White House won't say that. And the reason is because they know that by communicating the message to the Israeli government that there won't be any consequences for the Israeli government to simply ignore these criticisms and continue constructing its illegal settlements in the West Bank, there won't be any consequences.
Okay, I'm going to have to stop you there. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. That's Jeremy Hammond, publisher of the Foreign Policy Journal, joining us via Skype from Michigan. Mr. Hammond, it's always good to have you with us here on Press TV.